Welcome to the Sport Sesh Podcast for our second episode, and I'm your host Mason Shatwell. I'm joined by the wonderful co-host James Evans.
Thank you, Mason, for having me on again. It's a pleasure.
Before we start, I'll just go through the @s that I'm going to give. My Twitter is @Mason, @MMA Mason, and my Instagram is @Mason MMA UK. If you'd like to tell them your @s, mate.
My Twitter is EvansJames99 and my Instagram should be James.Evans_20.
As the first episode, we was explaining how we both write for MMA UK. So if you want to check them articles out, go to MMAUK.net. And if you want to check any of the interviews out I've done, plus all the other guys we've got on there, it's MMA UK on YouTube. So we'll get into the first topic that we've got on. Bayern Munich, Bundesliga, 8 in a row. Not much you can say about it, can you?
No, not really. I mean, as a footballing fan, the Bundesliga were obviously the first to return, and we all watched it. Let's be honest, as football fans, and right from the get-go, it looked as if Bayern didn't have any breaks. The COVID-19 didn't affect them at all. They were still playing their brilliant football. They were a joy to watch, and on paper, you look at it last night, it wasn't easy. I think it was just a 1-0 victory with, I think Alphonso Davies got sent off with 10 minutes to go, but in what was a much changed Bayern Munich team, even with like a youthful 11, they still managed to get the job done. And Dortmund lost yesterday as well at home to Mainz, so that's sort of the icing on the cake for Bayern Munich. And they've been a joy to watch all season and thoroughly deserved the title.
Well, do you think anyone's going to stop him anytime soon unless anyone makes any major signings?
Dortmund can, if you give Lucien Favre. Lucien Favre needs a good summer. He needs to keep hold of Jadon Sancho, and if he keeps hold of Jadon Sancho, gets Royce fully fit, Haaland up and running next season, then they could challenge. I think the whole COVID-19 sort of outburst affected Dortmund in a way, because seeing them play a couple of times already, they just weren't up to scratch. I don't think they were fully fit. I think give them a full season uninterrupted, they could challenge again on all fronts next season.
Well, my team United's obviously after Sancho a lot, but I think if Dortmund can keep hold of him, and they've just signed Haaland, I think it was January, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then if they could keep them two and make a couple extra signings as well, like you say, I think they could give Bayern a good battle for the title. So, as a football fan, in our leagues, obviously we'd like to see our team win every season, but for other leagues, it's good to see a bit of rivalry. Like for a few years, there was Barca and Madrid, but it seems like obviously now Barca are usually more up there in La Liga than Madrid. Like, don't get me wrong, Madrid are usually still top 3, but Barca usually are the league winners. But speaking of Barca and Madrid, a few days ago we had the La Liga return as well, and I don't watch much of La Liga, but I heard that Barca and in particular that team were quite on form.
Yeah, they're sort of, it's a tough one with Barcelona. I think Real Madrid has certainly given them a run for their money. I believe at the top of my head, Barca, as of right now, because they won against Mallorca either last night or the day before, they're still top by 2 points. And Real Madrid play in around about an hour against Valencia at home. So, obviously it's good to have La Liga back. And Barcelona, they're not running away with it. I mean, they looked, don't get me wrong, I think they've looked a bit sharp since the return of the La Liga. Messi's firing a bit, he's chipping in with both goals and assists. Ansu Fati is just brilliant to watch. He's such a good player, one for the future. I particularly enjoyed watching the left-hand side of Barcelona with the likes of Jordi Alba and Ansu Fati since the return. They both look quick, sharp and fully fit. Whereas with Real Madrid, on the other hand, I believe they won, I want to say it was Iber at the top of my head over the weekend. They won 3-1. They looked good as well. Hazard, he's not fully back to his best, but he had a good performance. With 9 games to go, obviously it's going to be between Barcelona and Real Madrid. If Real win tonight, which I think they will, against 8th place Valencia, then they'll be within 2 points of Barcelona. But I think the more interesting sort of aspect of La Liga is the two spaces for the Champions League spots, because right from Sevilla, who are third, to I'd say about Granada, I'd even put Granada in the mix. There's about 5 points difference in between third and ninth. So, Champions League is open for anyone, really. I mean, Atletico Madrid, even though they beat Osasuna 5-0 yesterday, I don't think they've been that convincing. They've got a lot of draws recently before the outburst of Corona. If Simeone can pick up his side, get some good form, they obviously got João Felix. They've got some players in their ranks who could get the job done. They'll get Champions League, but, the rest is it's intense. There's so many teams that are competing for the European spots, and it's good to see this. Yeah, I know it's such a one-sided league with Barcelona and Real, but for the Champions League, Europa League spots, it's too tough to call right now as to certain teams who will definitely get those two spots.
100%. As you were saying about Atletico's results before the COVID-19 started, do you think, I know they've got the players like João Felix, but I think his price tag did put a lot of pressure on him. But do you think they're also missing Griezmann quite a bit with the impacts that he had on the team?
It really is a tough one. With Griezmann, you look at it now, I think the Madrid fans hate him as to how he turned his back on them, did the sort of dodgy deal with Barcelona. But for them beforehand, and when he got him playing, he was the sort of catalyst of the side. He always went the extra mile to, make sure Madrid got the 3 points in the big games when they so desperately needed it. And I think you're right. I think they're sort of missing that player this year. I think with Felix, he suffered a lot of setbacks this year with obviously the price tag and injuries and current form. Even though he did score 2 yesterday, which is good for him, his confidence, I still think they're slacking. Diego Costa is chipping in here and there, same with Morata, but I still think they're missing that out-and-out sort of forward who's going to guarantee them goals, because it's well and truly good having all sorts of strikers who can chip in. But if you don't have that one player who can get you 20 goals a season, then it's not going to get you over the line, I'm afraid. And I think they've certainly missed his sort of quality in the final third.
Well, I think it was yesterday, or I can't remember what day it was, that there was a big game over in Italy, Juventus and Napoli in the Coppa Italia final. I think I'm not the biggest fan on Italian football, so from what I'm guessing a lot of people expected Juve to win, and quite a few people were shocked that Napoli ended up coming out on top on penalties.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you look at Juventus. They've won so many Scudettos in a row. They're seen as the giants of Italy, rightly so. But as a Chelsea fan, we can sort of see the Sarri effect on the team, and it's laughable to see. But last night, I mean, I have no idea what went wrong with Juve. I mean, they did mix a few players in, but it's a full strength side, in my opinion. They had the experience and the quality to get the job done. I think with Sarri, his tactics are very, very, very stale. With Ronaldo, and it's not really firing as much as he should be. It's just such a tough time for Juventus fans right now. I think with Sarri, we sort of witnessed it at Chelsea, where his tactics were just not up to scratch. And I think with Sarri, he won his first trophy with Chelsea, and with Juve still trying to implement those Chelsea tactics. And they're not working. And I think Napoli proved it last night. And I think for the majority of the game, from what I saw, Napoli had their chances. They could have won it. I think they had a chance in the second half to hit the post a few times, and Buffon made some very key saves in that, because otherwise it could have been 2-3-0 Napoli. They didn't finish their chances, Juve. They had a few. Napoli looked much the better side, and I think with Sarri, I think he needs to get himself sorted out, because his tactics are so stale and it's not going to last the long run, especially when you got Lazio, on their tails. They could certainly challenge in the near future. I'm liking the looks of Lazio. They might even get the job done in Serie A with the way Juve are playing. Yeah. Napoli, It's Inter Milan as well under Conte. Give him a season in the summer, get some key signings. You never know, they could be challenging. So it's tough times for Juve, really.
100%. But now I say we go on to the Premier League. The first game that was played yesterday, Aston Villa, Sheffield United 0-0. To be honest, obviously with the controversy of the goal, I still thought Sheffield would have won by more. Obviously they didn't win, but I thought they would have won maybe 2 or 3-0 before the game. But I watched the first not few minutes, but first bit of the game. But then I was surprised that Aston Villa, first bit of the game that I watched, they actually came out and played pretty decent. But the main talking point of that game is obviously the goal that should have happened.
Yeah, I mean, Sheffield United are going to sort of cling on to that decision, really, because at the end of the season, that could cost them a European slot. But yesterday, I think Villa had a lot of better chances. I was surprised by the way Villa sort of came out. They started really well on the front foot. They pressed from the get-go. I was a really big fan of the way they were playing. I was disappointed in Sheffield United. I think they had, I can't remember who it was at the top of my head. I think it was Fleck, someone at centre-back they were missing. And Aston Villa sort of exploited their defence at times. With the way Sheffield United played last night, of course, they're just going to cling on to that decision, the goal, sort of goal that is technology for you. I mean, it played up. Apparently, obviously, the referee's watch didn't go off then, but it went off at half time, apparently. So it's, Sheffield United weren't the best. They were just going to cling on to that sort of decision. I think Villa deserved a victory, but coming off of that performance, I think Sheffield United would take a draw based on that performance last night.
Well, I've seen, obviously, with the goal, with the goal line system that they use, obviously where they show the replays afterwards, apparently it was the first time it's ever happened in, I think, it's probably wrong, but I think 9,000 games, I think it was, that where the position of the goalkeeper, the ball, and the defender, the goal line technology were able to reach and be able to see. But do you think? I don't know if I believe that. I think that it was just trying to cover it up.
I don't know. I mean, we all called for technology, and even now they've shown that there are some flaws in it. So maybe it's one for the FA and I wouldn't say the referee, and they can only work with what they've got. So I think it's up to the FA to sort of figure out where the problems are, where the flaws are, and just build on it, because we all cried for technology several years ago. Now that we've got it, we're all complaining again. So they can't win.
Well, the game after that, and I never thought I'd say this as a United fan, but I was actually really glad to see City win, just to know that I know it's only delaying the inevitable, but to know Liverpool won't win the league in their derby in the next game. But City defeating Arsenal 3-0 at the Etihad. I know David Luiz obviously made a terrible error.
Same old David Luiz.
He's never going to change. I didn't watch that bit of the error, but I read online it was the first time, I think, since 2015 that in the same incident a player had been conceded a penalty where the penalty had led to the goal, a clear error, and been sent off since 2015. And I seen David Luiz obviously said that the loss was his fault, but even without that first goal, the penalty, I think City still would have run away with the game anyway.
Yeah, from watching, obviously I watched the full 90 minutes, and I think it took a while for both teams to sort of get into it. You could tell the fitness was definitely an issue early on, because when both teams had the ball in their half, the other team was reluctant to press, probably because they obviously didn't have the fitness, and obviously 2 periods in the game, they had water breaks. And I just don't think, with a fully fit squad, and if they weren't interrupted, obviously both teams would sort of put the pressure as soon as one's got the ball. You didn't really see that towards the start, but as soon as, and as well as City, they're brilliant. Started off a bit sloppy. You know, Leno kept them in at times. I think City were sort of giving away cheap passes. They looked sloppy early on, but I think after David Luiz gifted them that first goal, they sort of got into that rhythm a bit, started playing some good football. De Bruyne was just sensational. I mean, he obviously stole the show, and rightly so. He was absolutely phenomenal. I was heavily impressed with Benjamin Mendy yesterday. Obviously, he's had such a tough time at City with injuries, setbacks, never quite making it. And when he did get his chance, he never really proved himself. But I think the Corona outburst sort of helped him. He could just get that extra fit, train. And whereas yesterday, we've sort of seen a performance where we're not used to with Benjamin Mendy. He's so composed in City's defence and going forward. He looked a lot more keen to receive the ball and sort of drive forward. And I really, really enjoyed watching him play last night. But KDB stole the show, and rightly so. I mean, City were ruthless and flawless and clinical. I mean, same old City, and it only delays Liverpool, and I think Evertonians will be delighted by that, because I don't think they're going to want them to win it at the Goodison Park.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, with City's third goal scorer, Phil Foden, Phil's from round about the same area as me, so it's good to see a local lad doing well for his local club. But at the same time, I do think that obviously with David Silva leaving this season, I think Phil can prove himself a bit more. He could probably slot into the first team, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, because Pep's starting to do that, and I think with the way the season's gone, if we didn't have the Corona and we had a full season uninterrupted, I think Pep would have gone at the end of the season. But now that the Corona's happened, I think he'll stay an extra season. And with the likes of David Silva leaving, it sort of paves the way for Phil Foden to step up his game. And you're seeing that this season with Pep. He's done that the same with Gabriel Jesus. Sergio Aguero is not the main man anymore, essentially. He's not, I wouldn't say surplus to requirements. He's just been sitting on the bench recently. You've seen Pep carefully work Gabriel Jesus, and now he's starting to get his chance. And I think that'll be the same with Foden next season. Pep's not rushed him into the first team. He's just building him up, his confidence, and giving him the game time that he needs just for him to slot in for David Silva next season. I don't think it's going to be a quick fix, because, you immediately take David Silva at the side. My God, it's not going to be easy. It's going to take time. I think City fans know that. They're going to be patient with Foden. He's 19, 18. So they're just going to give him some time, maybe a season or two, just to sort of step up big time, knowing that he's the number one star in that sort of guaranteed sort of position. With Foden, the future does look bright for him. I'm a big fan of his. He just needs the time, and Pep's a world-class manager. He's going to coach him perfectly. Yeah. And in the next 2 or 3 years, we could see a potential star on our hands.
Well, I know during the game we never want to see it, but I think it was Garcia had a collision with Edison, and I seen he was discharged from hospital today. But with me not watching the full game, can you tell me what happened there? But obviously we're glad he's all right now.
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. Like, I blinked for a second, I looked, and then the ball got played over the top. And I think there was sort of a miscommunication. I think Edison only had eyes for the ball, and it was one of them where, because it was outside the box, you're not allowed to handle it. He went out to head it, and he just collided into Garcia, who was also trying to defend the long ball. So it's one of them. It happens. It was totally accidental. You see it happen a couple of times. So, obviously I'm glad to hear that he's been discharged from hospital, and hopefully we should see him back on the pitch soon.
Well, more news in the Premier League. Your team, Chelsea, signing Timo Werner from. I can't remember who they signed him from. Sounds bad, that. But tell me about him. What's he going to bring to your team?
We signed him from Leipzig for around 40-odd million. Personally, he's probably one of the most sought-after strikers in Europe right now. I mean, I'm such a big fan of his. He's so versatile. I think he adds a lot to the side. I mean, people say, Tammy's gone. But personally, I think they can play together, and that's going to only do Tammy some good, and that's going to give him a lot of confidence. Timo's just going to... The problem for Chelsea this season is once they go a goal up, they've struggled to act upon it and sort of go for the kill, get the 2-0, get the 3-0, and then sit back. Once we've got the 1-0, we've just sort of invited teams to put pressure on our defence. I think with Werner, he's just going to add that sort of killer instinct inside the box, probably cut inside from that left-hand flank, and I think we're going to need someone like him next season if we're going to sort of compete next year for the Premier League title and go on a good cup run.
Do you think Timo Werner is a player that is going to help you compete for these titles?
100%. But, it's a flip of a coin with these type of players these days. In Europe, you sign these big players and people immediately expect them to get the ground running, get off the ground running, score goals instantly. But it's a tough one. I think Chelsea fans are going to be patient with Werner. We're going to give him a season just to sort of adapt. And the same with Ziyech. We all know what he's capable of. We're going to give him that season just to sort of adapt to the Premier League, adapt to the surroundings, get to know his new team. And I think he said he's not going to play in Leipzig's Champions League campaign just so he can go to Chelsea early. Fair play to him, because that's only going to do him a lot of good. He could get to know the team early and hopefully sort of come to grips with the Premier League and what it's about.
Well, obviously Chelsea are hoping to be competing for these titles next season. Obviously, one player ain't going to change the full team, but who in mind now do you think Chelsea have to sign to try and make an impact in the league and compete for the other trophies?
It's a tough one, really. I think we need to sign a winger, I think, at the top of my head, because we've got Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi, and obviously Ziyech can play out wide as well, Werner. But I still think we need that out-and-out winger. Havertz has obviously been rumoured as well. I wouldn't say no to him. I think he wants Real Madrid. Whether Real Madrid are wanting to pay that sort of money, I don't think so. I think they're going to hold out. I still think they want Pogba, as well as Havertz. We desperately need a left back, because we're definitely going to get rid of either Emerson or Alonso, maybe even both. So I think we need either Chilwell, Tagliafico or Telles. Those are the three names we've been linked with. With Chilwell, I'd like to see him. I think he wants to join Chelsea, but I'm not comfortable Chelsea paying 60 million for him. I just don't think he's there yet. Yeah. There are cheaper options. So a left back, maybe a winger, Havertz, sorted really.
Well, other news, football related, but not in the Premier League as such. Marcus Rashford had a slight battle with the UK government with, I know his campaign was to provide free school meals for, I think it was about 1 million children over the summer holidays, because as he was explaining in an interview, he went through a stage obviously where he was going hungry sometimes and he didn't want any other children to go through that. So his plea was obviously for the government to provide that, and originally Boris Johnson and the other MPs declined it, but Rashford has obviously made a U-turn on it, and now the government has accepted the fact. So I've not seen, in a while, I don't think I've seen as much recognition for a young player for what they've done outside of the pitch than what Rashford's done at the moment.
Yeah, no, 100%. He's, in terms of that sort of aspect, he's sort of one of the pioneers. Footballers, obviously, they get all that sort of money. They get hundreds of thousands of pounds a week. And I think with Rashford, he's sort of putting all the money to one side and he's wanting to make a change. And I think, you've obviously got the sort of government who sort of implement policies and all that. But in terms of the footballers and their sort of status, they do have the power to have a say, and they do have a power to make change. It only takes one or two big top players to sort of make a change and make a stand. And Rashford's done that perfectly. I've got nothing but respect for him, because he's helped a lot of young people out, because not all parents across the UK can provide for their kids on a daily. So it's nice to see a football player of Rashford's sort of stature and sort of his ability and his to come out and say, you know what, I'm going to make a stand. Here's what I'm going to do. And then here's how it's going to help people. And I've got nothing but respect for Rashford. And I've seen a fair few, cough, cough, Katie Hopkins, call him out on Twitter. I'm not paying for other kids. Well, you've got to respect Marcus Rashford for doing that, because it does take a lot of guts to come out and say that and do that. So, yeah, he's such a brilliant advocate on that sort of aspect.
That was going to be my next part. I'm not going to get into it too much because we've all got our own thoughts on Katie, but I think she was saying that stuff on Twitter, and then she also put a picture on where it's edited, a face on a City player saying she looks good in blue, and it made me laugh because City commented saying not in our blue, so that was a bit amusing. But now going to the UFC UFC Fight Island 3 event, not included. It'll be the third fight night, but obviously the first event is UFC 251. But I've got the main card here, and I say we give our predictions. I'll go from the main card opener upwards. There's a light heavyweight bout, Shogun Rua against Nogueira 3. And I don't know what to think of that. I'm gonna go. I don't know why, but I'm gonna go with Nogueira.
Really, I'm gonna go Shogun. It's a tough one. They're both sort of coming towards the end of their careers. They both wanted that trilogy fight, and it's either way. It doesn't mean anything, but it's nice to have that trilogy. You know, no one's gonna benefit anything from it at all. No one's gonna. It's at the end of the day, it's just a sort of fight, a rubber match, just to sort of end the trilogy and leave it like that, because they're both sort of come towards the end of their career. There's not a lot at stake for either fighters. It's just one of those ones just to fill the card.
Oh, yeah. Well, the next fight is he's an English lad, Nathaniel Wood against, I think I'm pronouncing it right, Umar Nurmagomedov. And with the second name, will bring quite a few eyes. I imagine, I think it's Khabib's cousin or something.
Something like that related.
Yeah, but with Nathaniel coming off a loss, and with what I imagine Umar's wrestling caliber is going to be, I'm going to, as much as obviously we'd like to see all the English lads win, I'm going to go with Nurmagomedov on this one, just because I imagine his wrestling ability is going to be quite a lot to handle for Mr. Wood.
Yeah, no, 100%. Obviously, like you said, we do want to see our sort of British fighters do well, but immediately you're drawn to unfortunately, you see the fight, you're not going to be drawn to Woods. You're going to immediately look to that last name in Nurmagomedov. The sort of relations to that name, Dagestan, wrestling, that sort of background, and should Nurmagomedov, well, I say should, he'll probably sort of resort to that wrestling ability. And I don't think it's obviously as good, not as good as Khabib's, but it's still going to be high level enough to sort of cause Nathaniel Wood some problems. I think this one it'll be one of those ones where it just goes to full 15 in my opinion, and Magomedov sort of, edges it, takes it by decision.
Well, anyone that's coming in, I imagine all the Dagestan boys train together from the UFC, but anyone that's coming out of the camp with Khabib must have quite high level of wrestling. So, 100%. like you say, I do believe it is going to go the full 15, unless I think the Magomedov, like Khabib, if he does fight like Khabib, could pull out a submission possibly. But I do believe it will go the full 15. I think Magomedov will take it convincingly just because of the wrestling caliber.
Yeah, 100%. It's a shame though, because obviously all of us Brits want to see Nathaniel Woods do well, and it's not necessarily the best matchups for him. So going on coming off with a loss and then to fight Nurmagomedov, he can't get much luck at the moment, really.
Well, the next fight is another English guy, Danny Roberts against Nicholas Dalby, I think it.
Yeah, Nicholas Dalby.
Second name. I don't know much about Nicholas Dalby, but I am going to go for Danny Roberts. But I don't know why. I've got a feeling that this might go the full 15 as well.
Yeah, no, I think this one will go the distance. Danny Dalby, I think I've seen him float about a couple of times. I think it was Dalby who fought Darren Till as well in one of his in his early days, Darren Till's early days, I believe, at the top of my head. And I think Dalby, he's been in and out of the promotion. I think he's just got back to the UFC or something like that. He's fought in various promotions. I think, I agree. I think Danny Roberts will take this one. I think this one will go the distance as well.
Well, the next fight is a heavyweight bout, and it's Fabricio Verdum against the guy that's just coming out of retirement and moving up to heavyweight, Alexander Gustafsson. It was Gustafsson's last fight, I believe, was Anthony Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I knew he was supposed to be retiring, but do you think it's a good idea to move up to heavyweight?
Why not? DC's done it. I think maybe sooner. Well, Jones may do it. I don't know. I think you look at Alexander Gustafsson. He's got the build. He's got the height. He's got all the attributes to become a heavyweight and to fight at heavyweight. I've personally wanted to see Gustafsson fight at heavyweight. Against a guy like Fabricio Verdum, obviously he's an icon of the sport. Well, he's achieved a lot in his UFC career. However, he's one of them again, coming towards the end of his career. I think he came off that loss against Alexei Olenek.
Yeah.
So he didn't, from what I've seen, I think I watched it, he didn't look the most convincing. He just didn't have the sort of edge to go full out and get that bit. So with that being said, I think the sort of height advantage will play into Gustafsson's flat. So I think, even though Gustafsson said he was retired, I still think he's obviously been training. He's still got that itch to fight and compete. I think he'll take this one, Gustafsson personally.
I do as well. Like, I do think it is a good idea to move up to heavyweight, and I think Fabricio Verdum is a good matchup for him. So people might think I'm going to be wrong about it, but I'm going to go for a first round knockout.
Yeah, I think Gustafsson finishes, but I don't think there's any way in which it goes the full distance. Obviously, the fight standing, Gustafsson's got much the better striking in my personal opinion. If he can keep the fight standing and not get taken down early on, then I think it'll be a good day at the office for Gustafsson. I think he'll finish it. Not early on, I'm going for a late second round TKO.
Well, do you think with Gustafsson now competing at heavyweight, if he is to pull off the win against Fabricio Verdum, obviously, if he wants to be in the heavyweight title picture, it's probably too soon to be saying, but it's going to be too soon to be saying, but I think he needs, after this fight, if he wins, say another 2 or 3 wins under his belt at heavyweight, possibly. But with the division at the minute, there's some good fighters, but not everyone's proved the worth to be in title contention yet. In my opinion, we'll talk about it soon, but with the event at weekend, Curtis Blades and Volkov, I think after the DC and Stipe trilogy, I think it'll be Ngannou versus the winner of Blades and Volkov if both men retire after UFC 252.
100%. I think with the heavyweight, it's such a weird division, isn't it? Like, there are talented fighters in that sort of division, but one could go on a great streak and then just come up short, and it's just such a weird one right now. I think besides DC and Miocic, the sort of main contender really is obviously Ngannou, and I've read that Dana White's trying to get him as a backup for the fight in case one of them pulls out. If they both retire, personally, I think Ngannou will win the belt. I think when you're looking from the list down, there's just no one really, in my opinion, that can sort of beat Ngannou convincingly. I don't see it. Obviously, you had Rosenstrike, Ngannou viciously knocked him out. You got Blades. I think Ngannou will be able to. I think Ngannou will do it again. I think they fought already. I think they fought twice already, Ngannou and Blades. I think.
Twice? I'm not sure. I know. Obviously they fought the once, but I'm not sure if they fought.
I think they fought early on in Ngannou's career, when he first joined the UFC, and I think they fought again in China.
Yeah.
And both times Ngannou came out on top. So if it comes to a third one again, I think Ngannou finishes it.
Well, go
on. No, go on.
With you saying the UFC heavyweight division is such a weird division, I also think that's similar to the bantamweight at the minute. Anyone in their respective divisions could beat anyone on the day.
Yeah, 100%. The bantamweight one is so stacked right now, and it's good because in recent years everyone's sort of overlooked these divisions, the flyweight division and the bantamweight division. Even though the flyweight division is still a bit muddled up right now, it's good that the bantamweights are getting the recognition that they deserve, because obviously, right from Petr Yan and Jose Aldo, the number one contenders who are fighting the belt, all the way down to your O'Malley's, your Stamans, it's just stacked from top to bottom. And I have no doubt that there are some hidden gems who are yet to come through in the bantamweight division. So it's a good division to be in at this time if you're a UFC fighter.
Well, 100%. But then the main event of UFC Fight Island 3 is Robert Whittaker and Darren Till. But with this one, my heart says obviously Till.
Yeah.
Even though he's a Scouser, I don't know what it is. I've got a place in my heart for Till, but my head says Rob. But I'm gonna, just because I'd love to see Till achieve UFC gold, I'm gonna go with my heart on this one and go for Till.
It's so tough, this one. I completely agree with you. My heart wants Till to win, but my head's saying Whittaker. Some say, "Oh, don't let this rule this," and all that, and vice versa. But sometimes you've got to go with your heart, and you are obviously, but it depends what sort of Robert Whittaker shows up, because he's had his setbacks over the years. He's had to pull out of fights due to injury. He's had sort of personal issues, and I hope to God he's sort of on the road to recovery, and hopefully we see a fully fit Robert Whittaker, because fully fit Robert Whittaker can cause some damage, and he proved that when he was the champion. He beat Yoel Romero twice. I know, you could argue that the second one was a dodgy decision, etc. Could have gone either way, but on paper, when you look at his resume, as the Americans call it, he still beat Yoel Romero twice. And on his day, he's such a talented middleweight, and I think it's going to cause Till a lot of problems. But again, Till could cause Robert Whittaker a lot of problems as well. It's a perfect matchup, in my opinion, for both fighters. It's one to make right now, in my opinion.
Well, with the champion Adesanya at the minute, obviously, unless he doesn't come back as soon as we think from injury, it's going to be Adesanya and Paulo Costa for the title. And I think the winner of Whittaker and Till could fight the winner of Adesanya and Costa for the title. So I think at the moment that would be probably the fight to make after both fights have taken place.
But even then, I still think it's too soon for Till. Even I know he proved himself. If he gets a big win against Robert Whittaker, like an early not a stoppage or something, then fair enough. That's going to put him in line for a title shot. But if it's a close decision, like it was against Gastelum, I still think he needs that one fight before challenging, because it's so hard to sort of just join the middleweight division, have two fights that are gone the decision, to immediately fighting for the belt.
Well,
saying that with Till, like I said, he needs that one or two more fights just to prove himself. If he doesn't get that much of a convincing win, but knowing the UFC, if he beats Whittaker, he'll get the top shot.
Well, if Till does win and it is a close decision again, like his fight against Gastelum, obviously I think he's 5th or 6th ranked at the minute.
Yeah, I know. I think he's tied 4th with Romero or something like that. Well, not with Romero, but he's tied 4th, I think.
Well, if he does end up having a close decision win, and as you say, he probably should have another fight before challenging for the title, who would you say would be a good matchup for Till?
Not necessarily a good matchup, but a matchup. I think Cannonier. he's causing a lot of problems with the top ranked middleweights recently, and I think he's been injured as well. But as much as I'd like to see that, I think Cannonier would get the winner of. Oh, should I say that? I'm saying the winner of Gastelum versus Hermansson, but Cannonier's already beaten Hermansson, so it's a tough one right now.
Well, we'll go on to the event that's weekend. We'll give a prediction for the main event, Curtis Blades and Alexander Volkov. I know a lot of people are going to say Curtis Blades for a win, but I don't know why. I'm going to throw it out there. I'm going to say Volkov second round TKO.
Really?
I'm gonna do a bold prediction.
That's put the cat amongst pigeons. Wow, that's a very bold prediction. I like the looks of Volkov. He's obviously he's got a good record. I think with the UFC, he's done all right. He was winning the fight with Lewis until he got knocked out. That's the MMA game. Anything can happen, but he was winning all 3 rounds until he got knocked out. He's a very good competitor on his day. He's massive, isn't he? Yeah. He's got the size and he's got the reach and everything, but I don't know. I'm liking the looks of Blades right now. I think he sort of proved himself amongst the top best, but it's again with Blades and Volkov, they can compete with the best, but whether they can compete against DC, Stipe and Ngannou is another question, but I'm going for a Blades TKO in the third.
Well, obviously, your prediction's the more smart one, and mine's obviously the risky one. So I'm glad.
It's only an optimistic one.
I'm glad I'm not putting money on it, but I'm going out. I'm just going out of my way to try and say Volkov second round TKO. But then the event after this one at weekend, there's 2 decent matches, the co-main and the main. We'll start with the co-main, Mike Perry and Mickey Gall. It is an interesting one.
Is it? It's such a weird one.
Mickey Gall, the younger fighter. Yeah, he is the younger fighter.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Mike Perry by decision through the experience factor.
I genuinely don't know how to call that fight. It's such a weird matchup. Like, how did they come across that? I know Mickey Gall's the sort of the younger competitor, but Mike Perry's not that old as well. I think he's in his 20s. I don't think he's as old as everyone thinks, but he's got the experience. I'll give you that. He's just came up with a lot of crap over the past few months, hasn't he? With his personal issues. Oh, I'm going to have my girlfriend and her best mate in my octagon corner. I'm not going to have any coaches. It looks like, he's taking a lot of beatings. It's got to his head, but I think they're both. I'm not sure of Mickey Gall. I'm not his biggest fan. Obviously, I don't know. Was his last fight against Diego Sanchez? Mickey Gall? Might have been.
Yeah, I think it was.
And I think Diego finished him. So I think this one will go to a decision, but I'm going to say Perry, but with Mike Perry, you just never know. I'm not his biggest fan. I don't think anyone is. He chats a load of rubbish, but I think he'll get this one by a decision purely because of the experience edge in this one.
Well, the main event of that card is, I'd say probably, apart from Gaethje and Khabib, is probably one of the top 2 most exciting fights could make at the minute in the lightweight division. Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker. With the way Dan Hooker fought against Paul Felder over in February, I think it was, and if Poirier fights the way he fought against Gaethje, we could have one hell of a scrap coming on.
There is, we've got a scrap on our hands. I mean, I like this matchup a lot, and I've seen people go over on social media, oh, Dustin Poirier's overrated, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, he lost to Khabib, who's in his prime. There's no shame in that whatsoever. In terms of striking and his boxing, Dustin Poirier, is the pinnacle of that sort of aspect game. He's so crisp and sharp in his striking and in his boxing. I love watching Poirier fight. He's been in and around the game for such a long time. He's got the experience. But Hooker, you can't rule him out. I like the looks of Hooker. He's confident in his ability. He's surrounded by champions in Israel Adesanya, he obviously trains with. Eugene, I'm not even going to pronounce his last name, but Eugene, you know who I'm talking about, his coach. So he's surrounded by phenomenal, experienced MMA players, fighters and coaches. So he's got a good coaching setup and good training partners around him. So in that sort of aspect, I like Hooker. He's wanting to compete for amongst the best in the lightweight division, which is a very tough division to succeed at. But he said after Poirier he wants Khabib, and again you've got to admire that optimism from him and that determination to fight for the belt. So it's going to be a tough one in terms of a prediction. I don't know. I think we've got one hell of a scrap on the cards.
But with you saying with Dan Hooker training with world champions like Adesanya, I think he also trains with Alex Volkanovski as well. I think he said that in my interview with him.
Your best mate.
Yeah. So I think that will be a good factor on Hooker's behalf, training with people that have the experience as world champions. But I say Poirier's boxing ability is going to be a lot to handle for Hooker. So for that reason, I'm going to go with fifth round stoppage in Poirier's favour. Yeah,
I was going to say that as well. Poirier trains with ATT, doesn't he? Yeah. So they're surrounded by phenomenal champions. So it's a good one, but I don't see this fight going to the ground at all. I think it's going to be who stand-up's better. And in that sort of aspect, you've got to back Poirier. I think he gets a late finish as well. I'm going to go in the fourth round there, a late fourth round TKO. Well, I like Hooker, but I think Poirier is too much for him.
Well, I've got a couple more predictions that we can do. Which one's next? Well, there's UFC Fight Island 2, and I didn't get down the full card, but the main and co-main. I'll start with the main because I'm more excited about the co-main. Is Figueiredo and Benavidez. I didn't want to butcher his first name. 2. That's the flyweight title. That's the flyweight title. I know before, and as you were saying before, not many people have the best interest in the low divisions, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm probably a bit guilty at that at the minute. But I thought we'd say for this one. I can't remember who won the last fight. Was it Benavidez?
No, it was Figueiredo won in earlier this year.
Yeah, because it was Figueiredo that missed weight, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Figueiredo. It was for the belt, but because Figueiredo missed weight, the only fighter who could win the belt was Benavidez, obviously, because he made weight.
Well, if they both made weight this time, from not knowing much about the two guys, I'm going to go with Figueiredo if they both make weight, just based on he won the last fight.
I think the finish with that fight was a bit of a weird one. I think there's a bit of an accidental head clash in that one, which led to Benavidez wobbling a bit and Figueiredo sort of going for the finish. It's a tough one. I mean, Benavidez has been around for a long time, and he's such an experienced athlete in the UFC. He's fought Johnson. He's fought the high ranked. He's even beaten Cejudo, I think, off the top of my head. So if both fighters make weight, and we sort of see a different Benavidez, he's already had the opportunity to fight Figueiredo, so he knows what he's going to be like. He knows what he's going to bring to the table. I want Benavidez just because he's been around for a long time. He deserves it because with Demetrius Johnson going over to one, isn't it? Is it one?
Yeah.
Going over to ONE FC, and then Cejudo winning the belt and not defending the flyweight. He's been a bit unlucky, Benavidez. So if he gets the opportunity to fight Figueiredo again, and Figueiredo makes weight, I think Benavidez will take this one. This is from the heart perspective.
Cejudo did defend the flyweight, didn't he?
Oh, against TJ Dillashaw, didn't he? Yeah, but I don't think that counts. It's a super fight. I mean, fair play, you beat a bantamweight, but he hasn't defended it against a top flyweight contender.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Then the co-main of that card is the fight I'm more excited for, Jack Manson and Kelvin Gastelum. He's got that.
Oh, that's a tough one. Both fighters are in desperate need of a win. They really are, because Jack Hermansson was obviously on course for a title shot until he got beaten by Cannonier.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see what Hermansson shows up. Same with Gastelum as well. He's in such desperate need of a win because he lost to Till, obviously. Lost to Adesanya before, so I think he's on a 2-fight losing streak.
Yeah.
Mentally, he's had a bit of a rough year. It's such, I don't know. Obviously, it's going to be a 3-round fight. I think this goes to the decision, the full 15. It's a tough one, because if we see the fully mentally prepared Gastelum, we see the Gastelum will, we've all been accustomed to watching over the last few years, then he could get it over and done with, because he's had the experience in the UFC fighting the top fighters. But if we sort of see the lethargic Gastelum, the one that's competed in recent year, the last year against Adesanya, until it was a close fight against Adesanya. He put up a good fight, but with Till I think deserved the win. So if he's not there in terms of mental aspects, then I think Hermansson will take it. But if he's a change fighter, then I see Gastelum taking this one. But I think he'll go the distance.
Well, based on his last fight, and with you saying the mental aspect, I am going to go for Hermansson decision win, just based on, unless something dramatic has changed in the camp of Gastelum, I think the mental aspect could still play a factor. So,
100%.
So I am going to go with a Jack Manson decision win. But we've also got a few more things to talk about. Something I was going to say before we went on to this card, Dan Hooker, he's had a bit of beef with Justin Gaethje on Twitter, and I seen it on Instagram, and I seen it was a screenshot of one of Hooker's tweets directed to Gaethje. It said after he KOs Poirier, he wants to fight Gaethje in August for the plastic belt, which was amusing. If that fight is to take place in the future, I hope it doesn't happen next, because I do think Gaethje deserves the title shot. But if that fight is to happen relatively soon, who would you have winning that fight?
Gaethje, easy. There's so many ways in which Gaethje can do it, because his striking's better in my opinion, and even his ground game. Gaethje's got a great wrestling background. I don't see any way in which Hooker can get it. That's it. I'm being blunt and I'm being straight to point. Gaethje, easy.
Well, I put on one of the UFC fan groups on Facebook asking if anyone had a certain topic, and I chose one of them, and it was quite interesting. It was, someone asked if Britain is going to have another UFC champion again, who's most likely to be next, and I've chosen if anyone, I think next could be Leon Edwards.
I agree, 100%. When you asked that, when you put that in the agenda, and I read that in the message, I was literally scratching my head. I genuinely could not tell you. I think the UFC haven't got that many English fighters, but when the English fighters they do have are very talented. They've got the potential. So obviously you've got your Woods, your Allens, who probably needs a few more fights because he's not as active as he should be. Till, I'd love to see Till win because of his personality and just what he sort of brings to the table. But in terms of the likes of Costa, Adesanya and that lot, can he compete? I don't know. You look at it on paper, sort of all fingers are pointing towards Leon Edwards, and I think if I had to pick, I'd say Edwards, because even though he has lost to Usman, I think Usman said, I read somewhere that Usman said that Edwards gave him a tough test, and obviously he's on an 8-fight win streak. Edwards, he's only gotten better since the defeat to Usman.
Yeah,
and he once Gilbert Burns is out of the way, he couldn't take the fight, Edwards, because of the restrictions in the UK or on short notice.
Yeah.
Give him a full fight camp, full preparation. He causes Kamaru a lot of problems, in my opinion. I I think he's the next British champion, in my opinion.
Well, I was a bit gutted reading on Edwards' Instagram where he did put out saying, obviously, he was offered the fight against Usman at Fight Island, and due to restrictions or the short notice or whatever's going on in Edwards' camp or life at the minute, he weren't able to take it. So that was a bit gutting to read. And as you were saying about Darren Till and Adesanya Costa before, I do believe Tilly has the skills to become a champion, no doubt about it. But with how he was talking about how he felt going into the fight against Gastelum and Woodley as well, I do believe the Masvidal fight, I do believe Till's mental facts, obviously I hope it doesn't happen because it won't be good for any fighter, but I do think the mental side would play a huge factor in Till winning the title.
100%. I mean, it's, you've got to respect fighters who come out and say, look, mentally I'm suffering. I don't know if I wanted to step in and go to work today. You've got to commend the fighters who have the cojones to come out and say that afterwards, because it does take a lot. But with Till in the bigger fights, I think that's going to hold him back because, like you said, I agree. He's got the skill set and he's got the ability to do well, but that's always going to be in the back of his mind. Robert Whittaker could land clean early on, not put him away as such, but he could wobble Till so much. He's just there in the back of his mind, going in between rounds. Christ, do I even want to be here? Yeah, am I going to win? What's next? Blah, blah, blah. And then the mental aspect, it does play a big factor for any fighter, in my opinion.
Well, I was just saying, we've got to commend him for coming out and saying it. But going back to Leon Edwards, who do you think, if it's not the title shot next and he has another fight before he has a title shot, who would you say he'd fight next? Would you like? Obviously, he was due to fight Woodley at London in March, and due to COVID-19, that weren't able to happen. Now I don't see Woodley fighting again, to be honest.
No, I don't either. If he does come back, I don't think he comes back. I think that's him done. I just don't think he's got the passion and the drive to go to the gym every day and want to become a champion again. He's obviously got sort of different careers outside of the UFC. He's doing the rapping and God knows what acting, but I think he was looking for a payday against Burns. He did not look like the Woodley we were used to seeing over the years. I think it's hard to say, but I think he's finished. I don't think there's anything there for him.
Well, I hope that's not the case because Woodley was up there for being one of my favourite fighters when he was at the top of his game. But going back to Edwards again, if he is to fight next, a fight that I believe would be good for him, and I think could be very winnable, would be Colby Covington.
Yeah, personally, if he doesn't fight the belt next, Edwards, and he has to have a fight next before fighting Usman, I'd say Colby Covington. That's a tough one though. Like Colby Covington's a tough matchup for anyone in that division. I think. With that being said, I do think Edwards does have the skill set to sort of be able to deal with Covington's abilities and what he brings to the table. I do believe he does have the ability to do that. And again, with Covington, his mind's sort of not at it. He's been called out a couple of times by some WWE wrestlers and all sorts of that. With his loss to Usman, does he want to compete in the UFC again? If he's been given a big payday by WWE, he's going to be like, sod this day, now I'm going to the WWE.
Oh, yeah, he probably will. But now, for this next subject, Conor McGregor's retirement, I don't believe it for a minute. I think he's just looking for another big payday. It's
a negotiation tactic with Dana. No one was fooled by the birthday. Well, not by the birthday cake, by the cake as well. Goes happy retirement. No one was fooled by that. I think with Dana, even he knows he's just waiting for the right time to pick up the phone and call McGregor and assess his options. I think he said he's looking for he wants McGregor to wait until Khabib, Gaethje and fights one of that. Personally, I think McGregor needs one more fight before the winner of that.
Yeah.
Whether it be Masvidal or Diaz, I don't know. I want to see. I think it'll be Diaz next if he does fight before the title. But if he doesn't fight either Diaz or Masvidal next, then obviously it will be the either Khabib rematch or Gaethje.
Well, to be honest, I don't want to see him fight Masvidal because I think
no, 100%.
I do think the welterweights are too big for him. Even though he did throw him against Cowboy, Cowboy is a 155er as well. But before the Poirier Hooker fight was announced, I would have liked to see McGregor Poirier rematch at lightweight, which could have been with Poirier massively improving since the first fight, and so is McGregor. I think that would be a really good standing battle if McGregor was obviously fully committed to the fight and at his best. That would be a really good battle.
100%. I think with that fight, I mean, before obviously Hooker Poirier was announced, Poirier was in contention to fight McGregor, who's one of those names. And obviously, as much as we all want to see the big fights with either Masvidal or Diaz, the sort of one that made sense for McGregor in terms of fighting for the belt was a 155 fight against Poirier. He needs to cut weight down to 155 rather than sticking at 170. He needs that fight at 155 before making championship weight, because he knows he's already got the fight against Poirier if it happens. He's already had to make weight rather than, being relaxed. So to do that, to now potentially wait for the title fight, it's not going to do him any favours. I think he needed a fight at 155 just to become accustomed to the demands and obviously the weight cut and the sort of demands that the 155 has to offer. And a sort of a fight with Poirier was essentially a title eliminator.
Well, the title fight between Khabib and Gaethje is scheduled for, I think, September. But
UFC 253, isn't it?
Yeah, I think September. So. But I think if someone pulls out of that, I think they will try and get Conor to slide in there and be the replacement. But to be honest, if it was against Gaethje, fair enough. If it was obviously it'd have to be an interim fight. I wouldn't mind watching that, but if McGregor was to win, I'd feel a bit unfair on Gaethje because I do want to see him fight against Khabib. But if it is against Khabib, I'd love to see McGregor win again and actually start defending titles, because when he's on his game, he is one of the best, as much as they pay people to say. But if it was to slide in against Khabib, I'd like to see him have a fight at 155 before he fights. 100%.
But with that sort of topic of sliding in, I think I don't know if you heard what Damon said. McGregor wasn't keen on stepping in with a fight with Ferguson and Gaethje, I believe. He's not keen on being the backup fighter. Yeah. It's McGregor. He's seen as the biggest star and everything has to be done around him. So for him to be number two, so to speak, he's just not going to accept it. I think if the Gaethje did pull out, I would like to have seen a fight before McGregor at 155 before fighting Khabib, just so he's active, he's already prepared. You don't want to see January when he fought Cowboy to a big, nearly a year potentially, or in September, 9 or 10 months for his next fight. I think he needs another fight before fighting Khabib. If Khabib wins, if he fought Gaethje, then you never know. He might not need that fight before Gaethje. You can just have a full training camp and prepare. So with Khabib, he definitely needs one before. But with Gaethje, he can sort of get away with it.
Well, the last topic we've got for today's episode is the John Jones and Jorge Masvidal situations with the UFC and the pay. With the Masvidal one, I do believe, obviously, he is a big draw now after these last 3 wins. He's going to be a big draw after them. But, no, I do believe he should be compensated for the fight. But the one I do feel I agree more with is John Jones, because if he is going to come up to heavyweight and fight probably the most dangerous heavyweight at the minute on the planet in Francis, he should definitely be compensated for that, because he'd bring the eyes to the fight as well.
he did bits for pay-per-view. You know, you got the light heavyweight champions stepping up a division to fight one of the biggest, hardest hitters in the whole of the UFC, let alone the whole entire UFC. I think he's probably the hardest hitter in the division and the whole of UFC, because I think he did a test or something and beat the highest score. So to do that, it does take some balls. And I think Dane does need to get the checkbook out, and rightly so with John Jones. I agree with John Jones in that sort of aspect. With Masvidal, I'm not sure. I kind of see where Dane is at. I know he's the BMF champion, so what? It doesn't mean anything. You know, you're going into that fight with Usman as the challenger. You don't deserve to be getting a big payday just because you're the BMF champion. It means F all. It's a one-off. Even Dana said it's a one-off. So in terms of the Masvidal situation, he deserves to be paid what a challenger would against a champion. But with the situation with John Jones, it's sort of different. I think Masvidal's just hopped on the bandwagon with that one, whereas with John Jones, I legitimately believe that he does deserve a payday because he's fought for the UFC for such a long time. He's been a champion for so many years now, regardless of what people say in his last fights. You know, he might not be there at it in terms of his best, but he's still the champion. And to step up against Ngannou, one of the scariest guys in the whole of the UFC, Dana's got to open the checkbook.
100%. As you were saying with Masvidal jumping on the bandwagon, I do agree with you on that, because it was John Jones obviously threatening to vacate his light heavyweight belt. I don't believe he's done that yet, but I know it was obviously after them couple of days where it was all going on about Jones and Dana. It seemed a bit coincidental. After Jones had basically opened his mouth and said something, Jorge jumped on the bandwagon and said something as well. So I do agree with you on that point. And also I do agree with, if Masvidal is to fight Usman at some point for the title and win the title, I do believe obviously then he should be compensated in his first defence. But at the minute, the only one that out of them two that I'd say deserves compensating the most at the minute would be Jones. As you say, UFC light heavyweight champion, moving up a weight division to fighting, the hardest hitter in the UFC at the minute, bringing the eyes of his fans, and obviously with it being a super fight, there'll be more eyes on it anyway. I do agree with you on that one, with Jones being compensated more.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think with Masvidal, I think you're going to see a lot of these fighters now demanding more money, but you've got to earn the payday, you know, before you can start calling the shots. You can't just start calling the shots without deserving it. You know, I think once you've come to the top, and with Masvidal, if he beats Usman, I don't think he will. If he beats Usman, defends it like once or twice, then he has the right to call the shots and say, Dana, look, I deserve X amount of money. I've defeated the champion, defended it, but he's a BMF champion, means F all.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve the big bucks compared to John Jones.
100%. Well, we've done quite a bit, so we end this episode here. You've just watched the second ever episode of the Sport Sesh Podcast with me, your host Mason Shatwell, and my co-host James Evans. As I was saying at the start, we both write for MMA UK, so you want to check out any of the articles, is MMAUK.net, and the YouTube is MMA UK if you search on YouTube. And they also post on the Facebook as well, which is MMA UK News. So everyone check it out, and we'll see this episode obviously recorded on Thursdays. All episodes are out on Friday, so we'll see you next Friday. Cheers, guys.